Alright everyone, so unexpectedly Penalteam has actually been released. I don't even know how it was released, it was just sort of leaked, so yeah, we got it early, kind of weird. Gloob's gonna be really freaking mad. And today happened to be the actual release date for Qilin, so we got 2 episodes today, so I'm gonna talk about Penalteam and then briefly mention Qilin, sorry, because Qilin didn't really have any plot stuff, but I did want to talk about it because I did like it. But I'm gonna first start us off with Penalteam, which was basically just an episode to introduce the rest of the heroes. And I gotta say, I wish we would have seen the heroes spread out a little bit more. It kind of sucked having their introductions rushed, but I guess it is what it is. A soccer match is a good way to get a bunch of players, and we got to see all of their powers. That's not true. We got to see all of the new people's powers. Overall, this episode didn't really have too much substance. It was just sort of a soccer game. So it wasn't as enjoyable for me as Chilean was, but you know, that's fine. Now, one thing I thought was interesting is that Chloe wanted to be akumatized, so yeah, Chloe's basically working with Hawkmoth, so take that with what you will, Chloe fans. Now, one thing I didn't really like about this episode is that Chloe put up like a shield barrier thing, so presumably no one could leave. That would mean that all of the heroes had to be within that sphere, right? And it didn't look like the sphere was super big. I know it was big, but like still, it was relatively small, I think. Maybe, I mean, maybe being from the US makes my perspective of things a little bit different, but you know, I would think that it's a pretty small area for all of the heroes to be in, you know? So the other thing is, if Ladybug happened to be outside of the sphere, how was she supposed to get in, right? So how was Penalteam supposed to get the Miraculous? I don't know. I just don't like that. Now, I did want to talk about the 4 new Miraculous holders' powers. The dog Miraculous is able to fetch stuff, so they have to touch an object with that little ball thing or whatever it was, and then they can just call it back to the ball and replace it. So that was pretty cool. The Ox Miraculous can rampage without being stopped, which is pretty fitting for the Ox. Camper Kid can create any object he wants, which isn't super useful. It's basically like Rena Rouge, just a material object, so you know, it's kind of useful. It's all right, I guess. And finally, the Rooster Miraculous, which is the most OP Miraculous there is. Like, what? I thought Viperion was OP, but the Rooster can choose any ability they want. So Ladybug, if you knew this was a power, can't you just make the power to locate the nearest Miraculous, right? Aside from its own. So then all you have to do is go around and like just have the power passively on, like walk around Paris, and then it'll start like directing you to the Aggress house, okay? And then you find out Cat Noir is Adrian, and then you find out that Gabriel Agrest is Hawkmoth, okay? It's, I don't know. And even if she didn't want to do that because she didn't want to find Cat Noir, like, there should be a way to, like, specify, like, I don't know, just choosing an ability is so vague and can be exploited so hard. It just is OP as frick. So, like, it just, like, okay, if you're gonna make it a power, at least use it, you know? I don't know. So, yeah, that was, like, my very biggest complaint with that power, because it's way too OP. And it's not even that, like, I'm mad that it's OP. It's just, like, Ladybug hasn't used it, and she should have used it by now. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Now, the final thing I wanted to talk about with this episode is that this is the episode where Chloe and Lila worked together, or not worked together, but sort of like made a plan where it's like, ooh, if Marinette's trying to get closer to Adrian, let's cancel her plans. You know, which is something that I brought up in my risk analysis, is that, whoa, what's going on here with, you know, Lila and Chloe, because we didn't see them get together before, and now we saw that. So, and obviously Penalteam was the episode right before Risk, so yeah, a little fun thing. That was really the only thing, aside from the new heroes, that we needed to see before going into Risk. So overall, not too bad. Now, very briefly, I do want to talk about Chilean a little bit because I really liked this episode, surprisingly. When we got the trailers, I was like, this episode doesn't look super good. I'm not, you know, the animation is by far the worst in this season. Like, the only other worst animation I think I've seen at least that I can remember, is Dark Owl back in season 2. Okay, so the animation in this episode was really freaking bad, but aside from that, the story, like the actual plot of the episode, was really good, surprisingly. I wasn't expecting that. Like, not only did we get to learn more about Sabine and how good of a person she is and how smart she is, like, this woman is crazy, she's amazing, but this episode can teach kids that there are real issues in our society. And I don't know a whole lot about how France's police system works, but here in the US, there are definitely some problems here. And especially when it comes to, you know, racial bias, that's like addressed in this episode. I don't know of any other episodes in this season that have had a deeper meaning and something that we can learn from as far as, you know, socially and having a moral of the story, right? So this episode was really good at shining a light on some of the problems in the real world. And I just thought that was really amazing because, again, I haven't seen any other episode this season that was focused on that. And that was really awesome, and I really enjoyed seeing that in this episode. Hopefully this episode will shine some light onto the real issues with racial bias and things, because I'm sure this is something that happens to people every single day. And, you know, it's just not talked about in forms of media like this. And I think it's awesome that, you know, we're getting to learn about that through this show. So yeah, overall, I really liked Qilin. It had a really good like meaning behind it, and it was just really good because the episode itself, you know, the villain, it was all right, but it was just the meaning behind it, right? We didn't see any new heroes or powers or whatever, but just the moral of the story and learning more about Sabine and just everything, it came together to be a really good episode. It goes to show you that you don't need a fancy hero team, you don't need a fancy villain to make a really good story. So I hope that they can learn, the team can learn from Qilin, because this was definitely one of the better episodes this season for me. It felt like something that we could relate to the real world to instead of it just being a show, right? Like we could connect our daily lives with it. So yeah, really like this episode. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed, you can leave a like and subscribe for more content similar to this, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.